I'm ranking every TF2 map released in the year 2009 to see how they still hold up today, and I'm gonna have to warn you, this is gonna be subjective. We'll be taking a look at all of them in the order the wiki lays them out, except for the arena ones, because if I can't get footage of them or conventionally play a vanilla round of them to judge them, they're not gonna be on the list. I couldn't even get a round of Off Blast on the Gold Rush mod. Nobody wanted to play it. We've got a whopping 13 maps to get through, starting with Egypt. Oh, now this is a goofball-ass map, ain't it? Up until now, it can be reasonably assumed that every map in the game not only takes place in good old America, but specifically the region of Badlands, New Mexico. Wait, does that exist? Hold on. No, of course there is. Why did I even look that up? There's no disputing it. We aren't even in the Southwest anymore. We're suddenly across the goddamn planet. The visuals are weird, I guess. It pushes the boundaries of the art style really far, and I guess I can respect it for trying something new before the standard was as concrete as it is today. I don't know. Playing Egypt, it suffers from the same problems that a lot of the early attack/defend maps have. It's reliant on sentry nests, spam, some egregious sightlines, and a lot of tight hallways that are never really that fun to navigate. Also worth pointing out, Egypt has a ton of verticality. It plays to the strengths of the map for sure. I mean, rocket jumping is very rewarding here, but it's almost like too much. Blue is forced into a height disadvantage where they either have two options. Either pick a god, shoot upwards, and pray for divine intervention, or waste time taking an extremely long flank route. I know I'm mostly shitting on this map, but honestly, there's a lot of nostalgia here. First couple times playing, I didn't know anything about map design, or even creating beauty within a predefined art style. All 12-year-old me thought was, I'll admit, something about this one was really cool to me, and I fondly remember the stalemates that I used to take part in. Plus, with every problem this map has, another map seems to have it worse. It's not the most spam-heavy, not the most claustrophobic, and I guess it's not the ugliest. Egypt doesn't do anything outstanding, and it has some notable flaws. However, none of these flaws are extraordinarily offensive, so C tier. There's a good bit and maybe a great bit of nostalgia talking here, but this just feels right. Junction. Oh goody, Junction. Oh goody, sentries. Oh goody, tight hallways. Oh goody, more sentry. Junction really is an anomaly of TF2 design. I suppose you can defend it by reminding me that when this was added, the standard for making a good map in TF2 wasn't defined yet. And yeah, sure, but the standard for being a good person wasn't defined when cavemen were using rocks to turn each other's heads into red gush over a stolen rotting bird leg. This is like so far from what makes a good attack defend map in TF2. It almost feels like something that you'd find deep in the bowels of a community server's custom map rotation. I'm gonna just keep it real with you. I get very little fun out of this map. Unless I'm just really in the mood to go to hell and back to destroy a top 5 hardest sentry nests, I'm gonna end up suffering for the entire round. I don't think I've ever seen a round of Junction with like 0 engineers on red. Pushing specifically last is like pulling fucking teeth. I guess the only fun I have on Junction is using the winger to hang from the top of the lights on B to block the point from capturing. Look at them, they got no idea. This was a common trick to stall back in the day, but I swear it's been completely forgotten. Never really makes too much of a difference, but it's definitely entertaining to watch people play into the stereotype of TF2 players don't look up. I can safely say that this is the only thing that I truly enjoy about Junction. I'm not exaggerating when I say that there are some classes that become literally unplayable here, especially if red has a stronghold on last. To me, that just makes this point a contender for the worst in the game. But this is just a general problem with Junction though. I mean, what am I supposed to do here as Scout? What am I supposed to do here as Sniper? What am I supposed to do here as Pyro? That to me is such a glaring issue with a map. While not every map has to lend itself to every playstyle, a map that makes playing a chunk of the classes as fun as Lice is bound to be a dud. I'm pretty confident in having this one be our first E tier. Like I said, there's a little fun I can have in spots, but I would pretty much never queue for this map with the intention of having fun. Hoodoo. I remember for literal years, the general consensus on what the worst payload map was pretty clear. I mean, up until the seasonal events began bombarding us with our tri-yearly dose of meningitis. And from memory, that map was Hoodoo. And why is that? Speaking in terms of pre-Gunmetal, I suppose, the most common issue with some of the worst maps in the game were feeling cramped or having that one choke point that Red could just spam through without an issue causing stalemates. And that's exactly the problem with Hoodoo. It feels like when Red wins, it's a long, boring stalemate at a choke point that feels like a lifetime. And yet when Blue wins, it's your typical power, Either way, the losing team does not have fun. I mean, there's some fun ideas here, like with some of the flanks giving Blue the high ground to spam onto Red, with this concept actually carrying over from the first stage to the second stage. But I feel like compared to how other maps use levels of height to give advantages and disadvantages, it's never really fleshed out enough on any singular point. Matter of fact, okay, let's break down this map point by point. First point, it's really open and snipers even have an area with health, ammo, and cover to fall back in. Second point,
choke.
Second stage, first point, extremely easy to cap, and it doesn't matter because second stage, second point.
Another choke.
Third stage, first point.
Choke.
Last.
Guys, I can't breathe because it's a choke and I'm choking with a choke.
I mean, at least the map functions as intended. I know, I'm really picking at straws here. But you can tell this map was designed to complement the basics of TF2's gameplay and not go against it like Junction does. No infamous game-breaking bugs, no vomit-inducing or performance-crushing visuals. And while the aesthetic does not stand out compared to any other maps of similar styles, it looks fine enough, I guess. Also, the custom cart is pretty cool. This one feels like a D tier simply because the gameplay here isn't strong at all. There's just so many other payload maps I'd rather be playing, honestly. Pipeline. One of the few nighttime maps released this early into the game, it's Pipeline. First off, it's really difficult to find a serious game of Pipeline in casual. Payload Race in general has taken a bit of a hit in popularity over the years, thanks to it being considered an alternative game mode. Aside from that though, I like this map. I mean, maybe not for the same reasons I like other maps though. There's some choky areas, some overly slow-paced moments, and I do feel like Last is too open and sometimes gets capped way too quickly. But I think I like this map because of a lot of those problems. Like, dude, the tunnel in Section 2 is so horseshit. But it's almost to the point of absurdity, like some crazy shit almost always happens in here. I also have fond memories of taking advantage of the openness of the third section. Using the old sticky jumper to harass snipers on the enemy's balcony was tons of fun back in the day. Also, the winning team of the previous stage gets an advantage in the next round. The cart is moved further, reducing the distance you need to push the cart to win the game, but I don't know. I've always felt like the distance given to the winning team was somewhat negligible. You can literally catch up to the enemy team within seconds. Plus, if there's a cart that gets caught in a choke, it's very likely the enemy team is gonna catch up anyhow. It's not really something I hold against this map, especially since most people prefer to play round to round rather than full games, but when else am I really gonna be able to talk about this? I don't know, dude. I'm gonna drop it in B tier. Again, there's some nostalgia talking here, but even in going back to get footage for this map, I had a great deal of fun. I mean, more than I expected, honestly. The inherent balance of TF2's gameplay complements a properly made payload race map like this really well. Capture the Flag Sawmill. Anyone else remember when this map was temporarily removed from the game? You couldn't find it after an update or something, and honestly, I can kind of see why. This map kind of feels like a test from Valve to see how little they'd have to change the layout of a map to get it to work with multiple game modes. I mean, fuck, they released Sawmill like 3 times this year. I'm gonna be honest, the experiment didn't really work for me. I'm not sure if Sawmill was a great pick for this game mode. I mean, the part of the map that to me is the most interesting often goes ignored considering there's nothing here to fight for. For better or for worse, it's capture the flag. There's 2 options here. You can essentially deathmatch around the map and not care about the intelligence, or choose engineer, build in the intel room, and jork your petness to Judy Hopps scat porn for the entire round. One thing I will say is the attacking team has an easy route towards the enemy's intelligence that the other team doesn't have. Not only does that encourage teams to actually invade the other's base, but there's also some fun little defensive plays you can make here, like building a sentry on the roof. Also, I should definitely mention the sightlines on this map. They're there in the the other versions of Sawmill, but since you're likely flying solo and fragging, I feel like teams are less likely to gang up on a pesky sniper. There are sightlines that lead directly into the enemy's spawn, from areas that snipers don't even have to risk much in order to access. That being said, it doesn't feel overly offensive, I guess, more just a noteworthy flaw. Actually, there's nothing here that's really all that offensive, but because the most interesting part of the map is no longer a hot spot for team fights, it gets old fast. So it feels like a C tier. If I want to play Sawmill, I never queue for the capture the flag version of the map, since I'm likely in the mood for some strong mid fights near the saw blades rather than just mindless fragging. Yukon. You know, I always felt like Yukon was an obscure map, like even like 10 years ago. I rarely heard anyone talk about it, and no one really uploaded too much gameplay on the map. And I don't know anybody who ever got in the call all like, oh, guys, we gotta play Yukon. So what's the verdict? Okay, what's the verdict? Despite Yukon's reputation or lack thereof, I've never really hated it. Yukon's got some solid mid points and some solid second points as well. For mid, you can either go straight to the point and try to brute force your way on, but sacrifice freedom and mobility for some tighter corridors, or you can take the more freeing outskirts, claim more ground, and pick people off the point from a distance. You get rewarded for picking a path that's better for you. For the second point, you get a little unique use of elevation. Instead of just being something that rewards you for climbing up top and getting the high ground and spamming down mindlessly, the lower ground is actually more useful for scouts and spies looking to get behind and flank. I think these points are fine and actually have good design to them, with the different options you have for attacking the point allowing for more diverse gameplay. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for last. I'll put it bluntly. Last is impossible to capture without momentum. I've seen so many games stall here for no other reason than the team has to make a long trek through this narrow walkway or be forced into a height disadvantage while trying to reach a point that is right next to the enemy spawn. Stalemates here are frequent, never fun, and often result in a recapturing of the second point. So you can do it all over again. Unless you cap before the team has time to reconvene, which is, lame as fuck. And, what else is there?
Hey guys, TF2 Trivia Man Schwank, part 493 TF2 Trivia. Did you guys just know that the bottom port of Yukon is wrong and the loading screen is under the bridge, but in the final game is on top of the bridge? Be sure to stay subscribed for more TF2 Schwank trivia.
B tier. Yukon's got a good bit going for it, but with some of its flaws, it gets overshadowed by some of the other control point maps. Nucleus. Nucleus is such a fun map. I have a blast circling around the outskirts of the map, picking off random spies or light classes. And some of the routes you can take are great. I mean, if you play your cards right, you can easily circle back to the enemy spawn and just pick off people. It's super fun. Virtually an endlessly high skybox for rocket jumping. That one medium health kit underneath the point is so tempting to get every time. And getting into fights in those tight buildings is really fun and hectic. None of this has anything to do with capturing the point. Yeah, I don't think the concept of Nucleus and maps you never capture the point on have ever occupied different areas in my mind. Unlike most maps, however, I don't necessarily think the reason for this is because capturing the point itself is unfun. You have to make a mad dash over these narrow bridges over this deadly pit in order to get to the cover that's on the point. But it just feels like the objective is often forgotten here due to the way Nucleus is designed. The outskirts are so cohesive and they seamlessly transport you between the three levels passing by both spawns. You're bound to find someone here, yet leaving this area and putting yourself out in the open in a very open map never feels worth it. This design also inherently favors certain classes over others. Quick question, what is an engineer really even supposed to do here? I've never seen a single good sentry spot on this map that actually guards the point. Let's be real here, you can either have fun fragging around the outskirts or risk being headshot and pushed off the walkway trying to get to the point. As a result, the actual control point feels detached from the fun play area everyone feels comfortable in, which is surprising considering the big fuck-off nuclear reactor core that's above it. Seriously, what is this thing? I actually love it. This feels like the spire on Badlands or the last point on Gravel Pit. Some big centerpiece to help the map stand out like it's a fucking board game. I'd say this is my favorite example. Also, I didn't notice for years that this map takes place outside. I mean, I always thought it was like an, I don't know, an underground research center or something. But no, it's actually a canyon. That's pretty cool. All in all, I'd give it a B tier. There's some inherent design flaws and class favoritism holding this one back, but I have some really good fun on it under the right circumstances and in the right areas. Sawmill. We finally get to talk about the King of the Hill version of Sawmill. Let's talk about the actual saws. They're funny. Their inclusion here is so in-depth. They don't just act as an occasional hazard that gets in your way. That would only make them an obnoxious addition. Instead, they can be used to your benefit in a multitude of ways, like for cover, or when you're trying to close the gap between yourself and an enemy. All of this makes mid one of the most in-depth and fun control points in the entire game. Also, there's a little basketball hoop here for when someone gets hit by the saw. There's a chance their body will go through it. I'm just reminding everyone that this is intentional design. It took calories to put this in the game. I can't, however, sing the same praises for these areas. Any area that isn't spawn, the point, or anything in between feels just a bit useless. These, I guess you could call them flanks, are really big, especially on Red's side, and yet they don't serve much of a purpose. There's a medium health kit in both of them, sure, but even that doesn't really justify their existences. If I need heals, why would I go to these when I can just walk the same amount of distance to get to spawn for a full heal? And if I'm looking to flank to the point and get behind the enemy team, I'll most likely skip this entire area to get here, which is not hard at all. Still though, I enjoy the visuals for this map. Usually rainy maps in TF2 have fairly strong styles, and somehow a gloomy afternoon setting fits this theme of a rustic blue-collar sawmill quite well. But the pawns don't react to the rainfall. F-tier fucking shit map. But seriously, I'm a big fan of how this map looks. With the cedar trees, the murky, darkened, soaked grass, little details like this make this map one of the most atmospheric in the entire game. In my mind, this is still a classic map, but I can't put it above B tier because of some of those flaws. And I can't recall a time where I truly wanted to play this one for hours and hours in one sitting. Viaduct. I think out of every map in the game, Viaduct does the best job of showing why King of the Hill is such a great fit for TF2's back and forth style gameplay. To me, the struggle between two teams for ground is almost the blood of a good TF2 match. And a balanced game of Viaduct highlights this to the extreme. This is possibly the smoothest experience you can get solely playing the objective on King of the Hill casual. The point isn't too hard to capture nor defend, and it feels like most classes have defined areas of strength here. Sniper balconies, plenty of viable sentry spots, spots for spies to hide and uncloak, fun scout and soldier geometry, I mean the list goes on. Unlike most other Koth maps, Viaduct feels slowly centralized towards the objective, almost the polar opposite of a map like Nucleus. It's no wonder why a modified version of Viaduct often appears in competitive. I find it remarkable that the small size of the map doesn't make it feel cramped. It feels like the map uses its delicate design to properly funnel players towards the objective without forcing them through some kind of choke. If I want a solid round that I know I can get really into and also know that the rest of the server is gonna get really into, there's not much of a better choice than this. And this does all sound great, but I should mention that this is kind of a double-edged sword, in a weird way. I love maps that allow me to have fun playing the objective as opposed to roaming around getting frags, don't get me wrong, but if you ask me, I'd always prefer a map that allows me to do both depending on my mood. Of course, this is a bit of a menial thing to hold against a map, but to me it's still noteworthy. Also, it should be stated on the blog post page for this map that Valve officially killed its original creator. Why does nobody mention this? How is this legal? Bottom of TF2 iceberg knowledge. Aside from the honestly menial fact that this map lacks a kind of friendliness towards casual goof-off style games, it's still easily one of the best King of the Hill maps in the game. It's an A tier. I'd still take a well-designed map for playing the base game over one that favors goofing off most of the time. And this one has always been fantastic for that. Harvest.
Best map in the game, let's go Harvest, let's go! We fucking
Harvest! Oh, this is the best map in the game, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has Harvest beat, and no one can change my fucking mind. Harvest fucks! It fucks so hard that I'm forced into celibacy because of it. There is way too much to love about this map. I feel like every class is capable of having fun on this map in some way. Tons of geometry for scouts to use, a really high skybox that gives soldiers freedom to rocket jump, sniper windows, hell, even engineers have spots near the point that they can be useful in. The sheer variety of play area here ensures the map never feels dull. And if you get tired playing one class, then you can most certainly rejuvenate yourself by playing another. This entire map is fun to navigate, meaning not caring about the point in deathmatching is fun, but the point itself is fun to play around too. I love the little shed it's in. While capping the point, you can use it for some pretty effective cover, but its design isn't solely to help with capturing it. The shattered roof allows classes to rain fire down from above, and the sightlines on the side also need to be taken into account. This design can help with both capping and defending, and your success depends entirely on how you take advantage of your environment. And that's literally what map design should be. Let's talk the visuals, and Yeah, these fuck too. God damn, these colors here are perfect. The color of the wilted grass, leaves on the ground, I mean, it's all great. Visually pleasing, but not oversaturated and distracting. The color of the skybox is the same way. Damn, this is beautiful. It's almost like humble in a way. I love the outside props as well that push the fall harvest aesthetic, like the parked car trucks and the leafless trees. I'm a sucker for fall levels in video games, and this one is no exception. This is such a cozy feeling map. I'd love to masculinely bleed out here. All of this means that I'm gonna give it an S tier. Yeah, was it ever really in doubt? I always feel like I can come back here no matter what. It is old reliable for me through and through. Harvest Event. Is it actually? It's called Harvest Event, right? Like officially? That's a weird name. I did it again, baby. Harvest, motherfucker. Spoiler alert, this is the best Scream Fortress map of the game. That's right, the first one. It'll definitely become more apparent why as we start getting into the copious amounts of scary spell schmegma we're gonna have to go through later. But for now, I'd like to just sing my praises for this one. Harvest Event is basically Harvest, but with a damn near perfect coat of Halloween paint. Halloween's vibe kind of gets overblown a lot of the time in modern media. It's about skeletons and pumpkins. Gross! But I really prefer when Halloween is portrayed as more of a feeling in the air than a bunch of cartoons being shoved in your face. The purple tint casted across the map manages to not be too distracting while accentuating that feeling of Halloween night being a night very similar to any other, but with a festive haze permeating around every corner. Couple with some of the DIY Halloween decorations, and you get a great feeling whenever you look at this map. But the main thing that helps Harvest Event is its simplicity. The only gameplay changes here are pumpkin bombs, which are avoidable for the most part, and crumpkins, which can be bullshit, but you know, you gotta have a bit of your trick in your treat. Cause it's trick or treat. You know what, forget it. Might as well put this one in S tier too. Still the same fantastic map, but it also stands out on its own every Halloween for allowing the core gameplay of TF2 to shine. Double Cross. Double Cross occupies a fun little spot for me personally. It has its own niche. Let me explain. Even with Capture the Flag maps I frequent, such as Two Fort, playing the objective is inherently taboo due to the fact that, well, it's just not really that fun. But with Double Cross, I find playing the objective is honestly like the least not fun. Okay, work with me here. The intel room is still littered with sentries and tucked behind the enemy's spawn, but taking the intel from point A to point B actually isn't that bad. I guess it's due to the variety of fun paths throughout the map. You can take it through the main bridge with the tipped over truck, sneak it under the bridge and through all these cool little sewers, or just say fuck it and rocket jump past everyone to get the intel closer to your base. I remember the jumper weapons used to be able to carry the intel, and boy oh boy, that sure did ruin the map at the time. On top of that, death matching and messing around is really fun too, so occasionally you'll be meandering about, fragging on the other team until you notice the intelligence lying on the ground and suddenly, that thought crosses your mind. Oh, that would be pretty fun to try to take that back to the base. It's a moment in Capture the Flag that, in my opinion, should happen in other maps, but simply doesn't, at least not that often. Double Cross to me stands out as the perfect balance between mindlessly fragging for hours on end and getting so zoned in on playing the objective that you forget that you joined the server just to mess around. Also, shout out to the TF2 maps that be taking place at nighttime. Gotta be one of my favorite unutilized settings. But I gotta say, it really does do a lot of heavy lifting when making sure this map doesn't feel like a video game level. I mean, like, why are there two bridges on top of each other? One for motor vehicles and one for trains? This seems like a health violation to me personally. I don't want to be that guy, but I'll give this map a spot in A tier. Like I said, it has its own niche between being a fun goof-off map and a map that can occasionally be fun when it comes to playing the objective. A very low-pressure environment, just like TF2 should be. Gorge. In my 2007 ranking video, I brought up how when I first started playing TF2, I would exclusively play in training mode and play with bots on attack/defend maps. I would play on two maps, the first being Dust Bowl, which lends to a lot of the nostalgia that I currently have towards the map, and the second was Gorge. So you best believe that I have the exact same nostalgia. I had a ton of fun back then headshotting bots that would continuously stand still for some reason. But there's so much more besides nostalgia to love. I really like the flow of gameplay on Gorge. If you play this map enough, you know that it almost feels like a 3-stage map. The opening yard-like section is often held for the same amount of time Red would normally hold hold a control point. But since there isn't a real point anywhere near, they're often forced back easily by something as negligible as a spy cap attempt, leading us to the actual first point of the map. What's great here is that it feels like Red has multiple options of where to hold. Instead of just behind the point, they can post up in front of the point inside this building, the effectiveness of which depends heavily on the team comp. I think it's great that a map allows that level of options, and because Red's spawn is so far back, it doesn't feel overpowered. And finally, Last has some great verticality for being an indoor environment. These balconies allow for Blue to get a good bit of high ground, so Red has to constantly stray away from the point to keep them in check. If they don't, not only are they put at a slight height disadvantage, but Blue has a chance to capture the area from behind the point. Last feels so much more nuanced because of this addition. I think it's great. Moving on to the visuals, and I'm actually a very big fan. The distant trees and bright blue skybox are very different from all the other maps we've seen so far, and really give the map a sense of identity. Honestly, the entire map shows off TF2's color palette really well. Bright colors like the blue sky or the general white of the interior let the visuals pop, and yet they're still muted to prevent them from clashing with the game's predefined art style too much. Are there things I don't like? Sure. The sentries on Last, specifically under this little overhang, can be a bit much, and the map is really open at some crucial choke points that already feel a little difficult for Blue, but I have a huge soft spot for Gorge. In my original script, I decided to put it in A tier, but I'm going rogue here, and I'm just gonna put it in S tier. I've grown attached to its quirks, and that's a level of fondness that I rarely get with other maps. Maybe I haven't played it as many times as Dust Bowl, but when checking off things on the list that make a TF2 map great, Gorge just goes crazy. It'll always have a special place in my heart. And that's it, that's all the maps ranked for 2009. Let me know what you think in the comments. The viewer retention drops here, so I'm trying to wrap this up as quick as I can. I'm doing more of these. I'm doing all the maps in TF2. I'm gonna try to. Sorry, this one took a little bit longer. I don't know when the next one will be out. It'll be out when it's out. Okay, thanks. Bye.